Richmond Gordman was a discount department store chain that opened in 1937 and closed in 1992. Thank you for your suggestion.
I'm gonna go play. I'm going to school. I wanna be in. I wanna be cool.
My kids can have their way, and I can save on everything every day.
Richmond Gordman has more for less. More for kids for less.
I pay less,
And kids get more, 'cause they're the #1 children's store. Richmond Gordman has more for kids for less.
Gordmans was founded by Sam Richman, who left his native Russia and settled in Omaha, Nebraska, opening his own retail store in 1915 behind a small storefront that was part of a block-long building at the corner of 16th and Chicago, known as Jefferson Square. Richmond's store, operating under the banner Richmond's, Outfitters to the Family, housed his own family, who lived in the back of the store. The store was modest in size and purpose. Richmond's store occupied the same quarters for the next 20 years, never aiming to be more than small. It wasn't until a 1932 Chevy convertible pulled into town driven by an energetic 22-year-old New Yorker named Dan Gordman, who was full of purpose, and used the downtown Omaha shop to fulfill aspirations far more ambitious than those demonstrated by Richmond. In 1936, Gordman quit his job at Bloomingdale's department store, packed up all his belongings in his car, and set out for California. He was in pursuit of a dream 3,000 miles away, but he only got as far as Omaha, forcing to stop because his car needed repairs, and he was strapped for cash. Gordman's interest in becoming a successful retailer, meant to be realized in California, was instead fulfilled in Omaha. Within a year of his arrival in that city, Gordman met Richmond, became a full partner in his business, and married his daughter, Esther Richmond, thoroughly committing his future to the small storefront on 16th in Chicago. The store quickly expanded as Gordman applied his experience at Bloomingdale's to Richmond's store, distinguishing himself as a skillful negotiator with buyers and attuned to the needs of the customers. Within several years, Richmond's store occupied the entire block at 16th in Chicago. A decade after Gordman's arrival, during the years immediately following World War II, a second store was purchased to the south of the original store. In the midst of an expansion, Gordman acquired Richmond's interest in the company and changed the name of the company's two stores to Richmond Gordman. Gordman managed the two Omaha stores for more than a decade. During the 1960s, he was joined by his two sons, Jerry and Nelson, and his nephew, Bob, the arrival of whom touched off a period of aggressive expansion. The company ventured out of its home market for the first time in the 1960s, opening up a Richmond Gordman in Lincoln, Nebraska, as well as 3 more stores in Omaha. The expansion efforts, which tripled the size of the retail outfit, offered no stumbling blocks, encouraging the family-run company to take its growth plans one step further. During the early 1970s, the company opened its first stores beyond Nebraska's borders, establishing 2 stores in Des Moines, Iowa, a 3rd in Council Bluffs, Iowa, and a 4th in Topeka, Kansas. In 1974, the company opened a store in Grand Island, Nebraska. Richmond Gordman, after nearly 30 years under the influence of Dan Gordman, had become a regional retail chain of note. Gordman's recognition as a retailer stemmed not only from the increasing size of his company, but also the manner in which he presented his stores to the public. In Omaha, Gordman was the first to introduce central checkouts, shopping carts, and self-service shoe departments to the retail realm. Richmond Gordman stores were also credited with introducing the racetrack concept to a retail store's layout, a design that enabled customers to find a particular department by following a path describing the perimeter of a store. Gordman's innovations reached further, touching on a retail concept that recorded tremendous success at the end of the century and changed the dynamics of the retail sector. In 1975, 1 year after opening the Grand Island store, Gordman was beset by excess inventory. He also owned an empty building. By putting one into another, Gordman created a new business for his family-run enterprise. one that would become a central strategic focus of the company in the 21st century. In 1975, he opened a small store in Omaha on an experimental basis, hoping to use the store as a way of getting rid of end-of-the-season merchandise that had been removed from the shelves of his department store chain. The store carried Richmond Gordman merchandise, which each item selling for 50% less than it had at the company's department stores. Customers flocked to the store, turning the retail experiment into a new retail arm of the Gordman family called the half-price store. Soon the discount concept became more of an outlet for an out-of-season Richmond Gordman merchandise as growing demand prompted Gordman to dispatch buyers to negotiate for factory overstocks and in-season buyouts from apparel and accessory companies, which in turn spawned a separate corporate infrastructure to support the discount chain. By the end of the 1970s, 6 additional half-price stores had opened. The Gordman family retail business grew in 2 directions during the 1980s, expanding through both Richmond Gordman Department Stores Incorporated and the Half Price Stores Incorporated. The 2 subsidiaries were controlled by the family's umbrella entity, Richmond Gordman Stores Incorporated. On the department store side of the business, 6 new Richmond Gordman stores made their debut during the decade, additions that strengthened the retailer's presence in Omaha and Des Moines, where it already operated, and provided new entries into new markets such as Kansas City, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and Wichita, Kansas. The Gordmans discount chain expanded at a greater pace during the 1980s, where 9 new stores were opened in a 5-state territory. By 1990, 75 years after Sam Richman opened the first small shop in downtown Omaha, Richmond Gordman stores employed 4,000 workers and operated 2 retail chains comprising of 16 stores each. The company's 75th anniversary marked the return of Dan Gordman's grandson to the family enterprise, a significant event at the beginning of what would prove to be an arduous decade for the Gordman businesses. Jeff Gordman grew up working in the family business, leaving Omaha after high school to attend the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. He pursued other business ambitions. However, his plans changed after his grandfather issued an ultimatum. Dan Gordman threatened to sell the company unless his grandson returned to the family business. Jeff Gordman moved back to Omaha in 1990, rejoining Richmond Gordman stores at a critical period in its development. When Gordman returned, he started working at the company's stores in Kansas City and Lincoln before moving into the company's central offices, where he became part of the Richmond Gordman Stores Information Technology Group. By 1990, it operated 16 half-price store off-price department stores and 16 Richmond Gordman department stores. Next, Gordman became the buyer for the company, but the duties associated with his job as well as the tasks assigned to virtually everyone else in the company soon were overshadowed by far more pressing demands. Richmond Gordman stores stood at the brink of insolvency, unable to pay its vendors and creditors. We lost sight of who we were as a company, Jeff Gordman reflected in May of 2004, referring to the darkest chapter in the company's existence. After closing 4 stores, the 26-store company filed for bankruptcy in 1992, awash in debt and lacking the strategic focus that had underpinned its development for decades. The company's 2 operating subsidiaries, Richmond Gordman Department Stores and the Half-Price Stores, filed separate petitions for bankruptcy. As a result, all of its Richmond Gordman Department Stores closed. The off-price department store division became the company's sole focus after it emerged from bankruptcy under the Richmond Gordman Half-Price Stores name in 1993. So what do you remember about this place? Leave a comment or a suggestion for a future video below. And if you haven't already, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, bringing back memories from the good old days. That's super cool, man.